While the Chicago Bulls have had what many people would describe as an up and down season in different phases of the season, there are a few Bulls that have stood out absolutely this season who could be in line for some postseason awards and accolades. We're going to talk about those Bulls today. We're also going to talk about what if the Bulls free agency needs, all the needs that we've pointed to that the Bulls should be able to address this offseason or should be looking to address this offseason are already on the roster. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. And I want to talk about some Bulls, a couple of Bulls players, three specifically that we're going to pull out and talk about today that could be in line for some postseason accolades, right? And while we've talked a lot about Kobe White and his Most Improved Player of the Year award, we're going to talk about that absolutely. You got to talk about, I want to start this off actually with the player that we've been talking a lot about recently, and that is DeMar DeRozan. Now, even though this is one of the newer awards and, it is what it is, but it is an award, and I do think DeMar DeRozan is staking his claim to that award. That is 2024's NBA Clutch Player of the Year award. Now, when you look at it last year, that was won by De'Aaron Fox. So far this year, Steph Curry has led most of the odds on being the favorite of that. But then when you look at it right now, it's DeMar, Steph, and Dame Lillard, who are all looked at the top three of being in line for that award. And while Steph Curry is the league leader in clutch points scored this season with 167, DeMar DeRozan is right behind him with 166. He's also outpacing Steph Curry, and he has more rebounds, more assists, more steals, more blocks, and a higher field goal percentage, and even a higher three-point shooting percentage in clutch moments than what Steph Curry does so far this season. And I think that if he keeps up playing like this for the entire season, I think at the end of the day, DeMar DeRozan deserves to be the 2024 NBA Clutch Player of the Year. Now, when you look at it, he leads all NBA scorers in 2-point games with 2 minutes or less remaining with 53 points on 50% shooting. In 2-point games with a minute or less left, he has a league best 40 points, and the Bulls are 16-8 in those games. Then when you look at the last 30 seconds of 2-point games that have a margin of 2 points or less, he leads with 34 points on 47% shooting. DeMar DeRozan, once again, has been the NBA's best clutch player by a large margin. Yes, Steph Curry has scored more points, but as we know, clutch moments and being a great player in the clutch is more than just scoring. It is the assists. It is the rebounds. It's how he's impacting and affecting the game. And I also think when you look at the fact that the Bulls have won twice as many games that they've lost in those clutch-type moments, I think that should point towards DeMar DeRozan being the Clutch Player of the Year, in my opinion. Now, is there a little bit of homerism in that? Absolutely. This is Chicago. It is what it is, right? But when it comes down to it, I think that the statistics back up even my homerism in that case. DeMar DeRozan deserves that award, and the fact that the Bulls have been what they've been. How many games have the Bulls given up big leads? And maybe that does hurt the awards of saying, well, you're in clutch moments because your team has put you there. I don't know how that works. It's only the second year of the award. But I think DeMar DeRozan has more than earned his stripes and the right to be that. Then when you look at overall what DeMar DeRozan is doing and leading the NBA in minutes, what he's doing in his 15th season of 23 points per game, 5.3 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, I'd say this. If it wasn't for what LeBron James is getting, this is an accolade LeBron does deserve for what he's doing in this year. And being at this age, LeBron has just been amazing for what he's been able to do. We just haven't really seen a player be this dominant still in there at this age. Yeah, the Lakers are only 5 games above 500, but they're in a tougher Western Conference. But I think if it wasn't for what LeBron's doing at age 39, a lot of people would be looking at DeMar at the age that he's doing this in and with the minutes that he's playing, and he'd get a little bit more of the notice with that as well. But that just comes with the territory. He's also 5 years younger than LeBron, so you're going to get LeBron, like I said, it's rightfully deserved in this case for LeBron to be getting that notice for what he's doing. It's not one of those fake made-up ESPN stats where they're like he scored the most left-handed points on a Thursday of any player. But, DeMar's having an amazing season, and I think that, like I've said before, and I've talked a lot about DeMar over the last week or so, just in regards to his pending contract extension and stuff like that. But take all that out of the way because that doesn't matter in a case like this. DeMar to me definitely deserves to be in that. Now, these new NBA awards like Clutch Player and things like that, like I said it over on NBA Central. Bring back the Comeback Player of the Year, which is different from Most Improved Player. It's different from Clutch Player. If you're going to bring all these awards, bring back the Comeback Player of the Year award, which hasn't been around since the 85-86 season. But yeah, DeMar DeRozan he's been so important for the Bulls, so impactful, and especially when you look at how the season started off for DeMar, right? Starting off the season shooting one of the worst, I think it was the worst true shooting percentage of his career. And while, he's not as high as what he was even on the Bulls, he's now got that up to the fourth highest true shooting percentage of his career. That's the way that DeMar DeRozan has turned this season around. And, I got to give DeMar his flowers. I got to give him his accolades. When at a point where the Bulls clearly wanted to change up their play style different, DeMar has adapted to it the best that he could. Now, could the Bulls be playing even faster if DeMar wasn't on the roster? Yeah, theoretically. Could they be getting out in transition a little bit more? Yeah, theoretically, but I'm not going to knock him for something that theoretically could happen when he's showing what is in reality happening with the way that he's able to impact the game of basketball. I got to give a lot of credit for DeMar DeRozan for how he's been able to play, what he's been able to do, and what this has meant for the Chicago Bulls as well over this time. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Do you agree that DeMar DeRozan should be the NBA's Clutch Player of the Year after throwing those stats out to you? Go and do your own research. Go and look at the stats. Go and look at Basketball Reference. Go and look at StatMuse. These are a lot of places where you can pull a lot of advanced analytics. Crafted NBA is another good one as well. So, yeah, go and look at those places, man. I really think that they would it'll point it out to you that DeMar DeRozan has clearly been the best clutch player in the game of basketball this year. And hopefully the Bulls keep winning when they do that. Now, with that said, I said we're going to talk about three players. The next one up is one that we've talked about a whole hell of a lot, and that to me is Coby White. Coby White deserves to be Most Improved Player. I know I've talked about this a whole hell of a lot. I know I have, right? It's that Coby White, he's improved more than what any other player has improved in both statistics and in role. And that's in the name of the award is the clutch player is the Most Improved Player of the Year. It's not the player that is the best, right? That's not what it is. Is Tyrese Maxey right now a better player than Coby White? There's an argument for that, and I could think that there's an argument to say maybe not. Maybe you never know how Kobe would play with Joel Embiid on that team. If Tyrese Maxey played pretty well without a Joel Embiid on that team as well. But Coby White has improved over 10 points per game over what he did last season, right? The role that we've talked about. He averaged less than 23 minutes per game. He was leading the league in minutes played, and the only reason why he's not now is because he's been missing 3 games. It took for Coby White to miss 3 games for him to be passed up even on second on the list. And best believe, as soon as he suits up, he's going to go right back to that. I don't know if he'll catch up to DeMar now because him and DeMar are on the same team, but he's been that for the Bulls. Then you look at the clutch points that he scored as well. He's been one of the best clutch players in the league, right along with DeMar DeRozan, scoring some of the most clutch points in the league. So, he's increased in every statistic. He's increased volume, but it's also increased efficiency. And then the role, right? He came from being a bench player, scoring less than 9 points, averaging less than 23 minutes, to being a starter and a hugely important reason, a huge linchpin in the Bulls' offense overall. Coby White has absolutely balled out for the Chicago Bulls in every measurable way, right? Now having the highest true shooting percentage of his career, while the volume and usage rate has gone up. He's up to the second highest usage rate of his career. And the only reason that is lower than his rookie year is because the minutes that he played, we had players down in his rookie year, and the offense was basically going through him and Zach LaVine. But other than that, he's increased his assist to turnover ratio. He's one of the best rebounding guards in the NBA as well right now. Coby White is balling. And, I get it, and I know why. Like, there's more name value and recognition in Tyrese Maxey right now. Alperen Sengun, before he went down with injury, I don't know if there's more name recognition in that, but again, he's another player that was in that conversation. But to me, there's no player that's improved more than Coby. There just isn't. You can make conversations for it, but when it comes down to it, he's just the most improved player. There's been nobody who's made a step larger than what Coby White has made this season per what his role was last year. We already knew that Maxey was a near all-star, right? People have mentioned Tyrese Halliburton in this as well. Come on now. There's no reason for Halliburton to be in the conversation for most improved player. There's just not. Coby White is the guy, man. It's Scotty Barnes. There could be a conversation made about that, but I don't think it's as important because I think wins and how you impact winning should also be something that's included in the conversation around that award. And Kobe White has done that head and shoulders, to me, above the rest of the league. And so we've talked about it. I'm not going to go on as long as I went on with the DeMar thing because I don't think I need to color that as much as I've colored other things. Kobe White has improved over 10 points per game. He's improved over 2.5 assists per game. He's improved over a rebound and a half per game. He's improved in every measurable statistic that you can ask, and he's been a clutch player on top of that. And again, it's not just about scoring, right? When you look at how the game has improved to him, his IQ and getting his other players involved, using his ability to break down defenses, not only to get to the rim, but dish it off to the other players. We need some other players to hit some shots, right? These are big things and why Kobe White, to me, deserves to be most improved player of the year. The next player up is Alex Caruso. Now, I wish that I could say Alex Caruso could be in line for defensive player of the year. I just don't think that he's going to get that. He's 5th in the NBA in steals, right? That's something that he really does amazingly well. He's drawn 10 charges, which is highest in the league. He's 3rd most in deflections in the league. And when you look at his ability to disrupt pick and rolls and how often when he picks up the roll man or the pick player in that, it's great, right? So Alex Caruso, while I don't think is in line for a Defensive Player of the Year award, I definitely think that he should be in line for an all-defensive first team yet again, which is something that he did achieve before. Alex Caruso's defense and the fact that his offense has come along with it. Now we're talking about a defensive award, but the way that Alex Caruso impacts the game. That's why when people try to point out like for my example, Montez in the comments who always tries to point out, oh, well, Alex Caruso shouldn't be playing a lot of minutes. Like, what basketball are you watching? Alex Caruso is so impactful and he even does it when he's not necessarily scoring. You see the plays that he makes. The biggest knock on Alex Caruso is, my boy, can you stay a little bit healthier? Right? Can you stay healthier? We need you on the court a little bit more, my boy, which he's doing a lot more this season, right? Alex Caruso's on pace to play, I think, almost 70 games this season. So shout out to Alex Caruso for being able to do that, right? Because, we need Alex Caruso on the court, especially in the season where we've lost Zach, we've lost Patrick Williams. He's played 60 games already this season, started 47 of those games. Alex Caruso has been so important for what the Bulls have done, and he helps set that tone. And a little bit of the identity that the Bulls do have comes from a player like Alex Caruso, especially defensively, right? When we need those defensive moments, when we need those big kind of momentum-changing defensive plays, a lot of times it's Alex Caruso when that's all said and done. So I love the way that Caruso plays. And listen, I know that the way that the brand of basketball that Caruso plays, it's not always going to be something that resonates for every single basketball fan because not everybody's looking at, hey, how do you guard this guy off the pick and roll? Hey, how do you create that space with where you place your body at when you're guarding in the pick and roll, right? How many plays have you changed? Have you made players pick up their ball and change the play, right? Because they have to pass it off now because they had to pick their dribble up, and now you've kind of disrupted the play there. There's a lot of things that Alex Caruso does that doesn't show up in the stat sheet at all, and thus a lot more casual basketball fans don't really understand the impact of Alex Caruso. But listen, Alex Caruso is the guy for the Chicago Bulls in a lot of ways. When you need a big bucket, sometimes he steps up. When you need a big steal, when you need a big shot deflected, when you need a big block, Alex Caruso has been that for the Bulls throughout the majority of the season, and I really do think he's in line for some postseason awards as well. Like I said, I think that's more of an accolade than an award, but I definitely think that Alex Caruso is going to make it all defensive first team this year. I struggle to think of anybody who should make it over him. Now, I know there's a conversation. You can make anything into a conversation, but I definitely think Alex Caruso should be in line for that. But you guys can let me know what you think down below. Now, one of the awards that I mentioned that should come, I would love to see a Comeback Player of the Year award. Is there anybody, and I get it, there are probably other players in the NBA that deserve it, but we're talking right now about Chicago Bulls. Ayo Dosunmu deserves, in my opinion, to be, if there was a Comeback Player of the Year, to me, it's Ayo Dosunmu. When you look at what Dosunmu was last season, right? While the stats were nearly identical to what he did his rookie year, his field goal shooting percentage was down almost 3 percentage points, right? His 3-point shooting percentage from the rookie to sophomore year was down almost 6 percentage points. But then when you look at what Ayo's done this season, right? Stepping up, starting 28 games so far out of the 67 games that he's played for the Chicago Bulls on the season so far, 11.5 points per game. That is the most of his NBA career. He's shooting the ball 39% from three-point range, taking almost 4 3-pointers per game, which is the highest of his NBA career. He's also taking the most shots in his career at 9 shots per game, and he's shooting that at the second best clip of his career at 48.9%. Ayo Dosunmu has much like Kobe White, has taken a big leap for the Chicago Bulls. For a while there, I called it a step, but I think you can now safely call it a leap that Ayo Dosunmu's made. And then when you look at the way that he's played since Kobe White went down, right? Since Kobe White has been out with his injury, Ayo Dosunmu has averaged right around 25 points per game that he's averaged in that time. Basically, when you increase Ayo Dosunmu's role, his output increases substantially, and his efficiency goes up as well in those times. Not only that, but then the passing. You look at the last 2 games for Ayo Dosunmu, 10 assists, 9 assists when he's actually back to playing point guard, which is something that a lot of us thought, hey, Ayo's now kind of better on the wing. He's better off ball. He's shown, hey, no, I can do some passing as well in this. The decision-making, the brand of defense is still there for Ayo Dosunmu as well. Ayo Dosunmu has, in a lot of ways, kind of corrected everything that we wanted to see him correct from his sophomore year. He laid a great foundation, showed a lot of the promise that we wanted to see in his rookie year. But then when he was thrust into that starting point guard role, it didn't really fit him. Now he's come back, worked this offseason. They already talked about how much, because he lives in Chicago. He's not like the other players like Zach who goes to California, DeMar goes to California. I don't even know if Kobe goes back to North Carolina. I think Kobe just travels training with people. But Ayo stayed in Chicago, and he was in that building 2-3 times a day, Billy Donovan said, and got to work with Peter Patton. Probably was one of the first Bulls players that Peter Patton got to work with day in and day out because he did stay in Chicago. So the way that Ayo Dosunmu has increased his role, his output this season, again, I know the award isn't a thing, but I do think if Comeback Player of the Year award was still a thing, Ayo Dosunmu would more than enough should be in the conversation for that. So I also wanted to take that time out to acknowledge how well Ayo Dosunmu has been playing. But that's my thought. You guys can let me know down below. What do you guys think about the Bulls and some of the Bulls who could be in line? Do you think DeMar DeRozan could make an All-NBA team? Do you think Kobe could? I don't necessarily think that, just with the record of the Bulls and kind of the national media conversation around the Bulls. Not that that matters for how good the team actually is, but I do think that matters with those type of accolades and things like that. But you guys can let me know what you think down below. Now, before we go, I want to talk about something that I was thinking about. And I'm not saying 100%, but this is just kind of my thought process. And sometimes on these episodes, I like to just work through my thoughts, right? You guys can let me know if I'm off my rocker, if I'm crazy, whatever it is. But when you look at the Bulls, right, and you look at the free agency upcoming, we know that we need a couple of things. We need some shot blocking, some rim protection, right? We need some more size. We need 3-point shooting. I think ideally is kind of most of what the players, now, of course, you can say things that aren't nearly, well, I guess they are quantifiable, that hopefully we can find our starting center of the future, somebody who can be behind Vooch for maybe the next year and then take over that starting position, maybe even somebody who can take over that wing position from DeMar DeRozan, which Terrence Shannon Jr., by the way, from Illinois, we're just going to say that. But with that said, some of the needs that the Bulls have, I really do think they're going to find on their roster, and they're going to have to, just because of how close we are to the NBA's luxury tax. And so I want to look at that a couple of ways, right? We know we need 3-point shooting. And I saw an article from Bleacher Report. We actually talked about it over on Locked On Bulls, where it discussed Kelly Oubre Jr. and Buddy Hield as targets for the Chicago Bulls this offseason, right? And I look at that and I said, listen, Kelly Oubre Jr., he has this reputation of being a scorer, but he doesn't shoot the ball efficiently from 3. He doesn't really shoot the ball efficiently from anywhere on the court, but he is somebody that if you give him a lot of volume, he can put up points. But you can say that about a lot of NBA players. But rather than go after somebody like Kelly Oubre Jr., now, if you can get Buddy Hield, let's be clear. I don't personally, I think Pat thinks that Buddy Hield can be a starter. I don't think that. But you look at Buddy Hield and you absolutely say, hey, this dude, his 3-point shooting is legit. But what if you already have that and you're grooming that in OB and Onuralp Bitim, right? So because when you look at Bitim, it's the fact that he's growing in role. He's solid defensively. He's been a pro since he's been basically 19 years old, and you see the development in his game and since his minutes have increased, and they could be preparing him for that. Then, even if you do need an additional 3-point shooter, Henry Drell is right there in the G League, has been in your G League system for about 3 years now, and if nothing else, it's a good rebounder and a good 3-point shooter. Just some thought process there, right? And then you look at the big. Yeah, I hope that the Bulls draft a big. You guys know I have Khalil Ware, Kyle Filipowski, definitely on my draft board as well. But if the Bulls do go wing, for example, in the draft, what if the shot blocking that we need is there? When you look at Adama Sanogo and what he's been able to do in the G League, right? And I'm no longer saying that he's going to be able to replicate exactly what he has done in the G League, in the NBA level, because that's just not the way that it works. But Adama Sanogo is absolutely killing it in the G League. In 24 games played and averaging 30 minutes, he's averaging 22 points per game, 12.6 rebounds, 1.5 blocks per game, and almost a steal per game. Now, in no way am I saying that Adama Sanogo is going to has a higher ceiling than like a Kyle Filipowski or somebody like that. I'm not saying we should avoid drafting those players if they're there for us because Sanogo's on the board, but I'm saying this. What if the Bulls do look at that and say, this is a player that we can, again, a cost control contract can bring up and really develop, which is the goal of what you do with those type of things, right? Is that. And I think that we have some players here. Julian Phillips, who still can develop on that wing and in that power forward position as a defender and a three-point shooter, as well as things that we're looking at, right? Dalen Terry, what is he going to be next season as a defender, right? He could be that defender, passer, and kind of transition, damage and transition guard that we wanted on this team. So while the Bulls' free agency and their cap space is bleak, let me be clear here. You bring back DeMar, you bring back Patrick Williams, you're looking at your draft pick and maybe a slightly above veteran minimum signing that you're going to use with your mid-level exception. But that's pretty much it for the Chicago Bulls. So I know that we've talked a lot about the Bulls playing the younger guys, and Billy Donovan's been doing that more so recently because of the injuries on this team. And I didn't even mention Patrick Williams and what he could still bring to this team. But I think next year, while we're looking and hoping for a lot of change via now, if Zach LaVine is moved, yeah, you're going to get a lot of change. If the Bulls don't bring back or use the career-ending injury exception for Lonzo Ball, yeah, some things are going to change there. If, for example, the Bulls do move on from DeMar DeRozan, yeah, you're going to get some considerable change there. But with what AK and Eversley, or what AK more specifically has said recently, I think that we may be pointing towards a lot of the change that we need or want to see from the Chicago Bulls. They may try to fill internally, and I don't know what that's going to mean for the record of the Chicago Bulls next year. Again, we owe a top 10 protected pick to the San Antonio Spurs. So if you're going to if there's going to be any year of you wanting to give the young guys an opportunity to sink or swim, next year may be the best year to do that, to give your guys the opportunity to show. Because the way that it may work out is this: if they fail, all right, you get to potentially keep your pick. But if they work and if they thrive in those roles, then you know what you got in those guys. And then the following season, when the Bulls are slated to have drastically more cap space, that's where you can make your move and fill things out with veterans. But let me know what you guys think on all that down below. Make sure you're following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.